माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नाम आचार्य श्री ठाकुर हरिदास की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवदीप मायापुर धाम की जय। गंगा देवी की जय। यमुना मणि की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन डीवीडी संस्थापक आचार्य श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much for coming this morning and also for giving me an opportunity to say a few words about Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami, as we know, is one of the most important acharyas in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line. So we'll be speaking about his instructions to us and how much we can take advantage of those instructions, how beneficial they are. So as always, we begin with Mangalacharana. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manodhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Udaparakamadam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhampitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhukya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Madhgavirapi Gopala Sri Kuryat Kripaya Yadi Tadaivasam Tayaha Pitva Krishyayustat Kriyajanaha. At the end of his 10th canto commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur prays very humbly, my dear Lord Gopal, only if you accept my words, which are like cows, then will they become sweet like milk and thus give pleasure to your devotees. So I'm praying in the same way. In his wonderful, small but very important book called Nectar of Instruction, a translation and commentary on Srila Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita, Srila Prabhupada begins by telling us in his preface that this Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas or Bengali Vaishnavas are mostly followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of whom the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan are direct disciples. Therefore, Narottam Das Thakur has sung Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoidi Akuti Kaveham Bujhavoshe Jugal Piriti. When I am eager to understand the literature given by the Goswamis, then I shall be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. He goes on to say that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared in this world even in the Kali Yuga, and his purpose is to benedict all of us with the very highest thing. Yo jnanamattam bhuvanam dayalu lulaghayanaatya kramot pramattam. He says that the very highest thing is being given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and who is he giving it to? He's giving it to the very lowest persons. In Kali Yuga, we know we're all very dense spiritually, even intellectually, mentally, we're crazed, and our senses are very difficult to control. Most of us are completely subjugated by the association around us and have no chance really to cultivate spiritual life. What to speak of divine love of Godhead on the very highest level. Even in Vaikuntha, the confidential affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are not known or appreciated. So this very highest benediction, Tasmai Mahaprema Rasapradaya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mamam Pravadye. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give us. And he's largely giving us any appreciation of the loving affairs of Radha and Madhava through his disciples, especially these 6 Goswamis. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami was the leader of these 6 Goswamis, and to guide our activities, he gave the Upadeshamrita, this nectar of instruction, to follow. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left behind him 8 verses known as Shikshashtaka, Srila Rupa Goswami gave us Upadeshamrita so that we may become pure Vaishnavas. So the characteristic of this small but very, very important book is that it gives us guidance and golden advice for every stage of spiritual advancement, beginning all the way from entry-level Krishna consciousness to any pedestrian. Srila Rupa Goswami has given instructions that they can take advantage of and advance spiritually. And when we do, he's also given us the very quintessence of spiritual advice for those who are the most advanced. So, as it were, he gives us everything that we need to know from A to Z. And Srila Prabhupada goes on to say in his preface here that in the beginning, our first business is to control the mind and senses, because unless we do that, we cannot make any spiritual advancement. Spiritual advancement means not only do you theoretically appreciate that you have a spiritual identity, but you act on that identity. That's one big difference that I have seen, at least personally, between the Krishna consciousness movement and other spiritual societies who may have a very profound intellectual understanding of spiritual reality, but it's pretty much infotainment. Even in Vrindavan, we have so many Srimad Bhagavatam, Gyan Mahayajnas going on, Rasamayi Sanghi Kesat, and the people just go home and it doesn't really change anything. But actually Srimad Bhagavatam itself says that this knowledge is meant to bring about a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. A revolution in the impious lives of a world's misdirected civilization, pseudo-civilization. Actually, someone asked, this is apocryphal story, someone asked Mahatma Gandhi, what do you think of Western civilization? And he said, I think it's a great idea. So, we're not really civilized in the modern world. Anyone ever heard of Hitopadesh? A Sanskrit word called Hitopadesh. Yeah, pretty well known. They don't teach these things anymore. Maybe they're starting now with the BJP government, but certainly won't hear it elsewhere. Hitopadesh says, Ahara nidra bhayamaitanam cha. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, these are our four primary concerns in life. We just assume, presuppose, that life is meant for the perfection of these four activities. Eat nicely, sleep nicely, mate nicely, and do whatever you have to do to defend that. We all talk about our rights, right? Human rights. That means defense propensity, fighting. If somebody gets in steps on my eating, sleeping, and mating, then I'm going to fight for sure. And security systems, everybody's concerned about security systems. Any of you in the IT industry, maybe you were even working in that sector. But this is all extended animal propensity of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So we're not really human until we come to the stage of dharma, where we can at least become civilized and control our senses and act like a human being. So, dharmasya hina pashubhisamana, Hitopadesh continues. Without that, then we're really no better than the animals. Srila Prabhupada said, the animals are running around on four legs looking for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and the human beings are doing the same thing on four wheels. Lekin koi fark nahi. So, first of all, Rupa Goswami tells us, Vacho vegam manasakrodha vegam jihva vegam udaropastha vegam etan vegan yo vishaheta dhira sarvam apimam prithidim sasishyat. That means, a sober person, human life is meant for becoming sober, who can tolerate the urges of the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. That person is actually qualified to make disciples over the world. So this is the first step, as Prabhupada mentioned already. In spiritual life, if we want to advance, the first thing is a little difficult. We have to regulate our senses. Having become a civilized human being, because humanity is not biologically defined. You may be, in fact, a biologically correct human being. That's fine. But it doesn't mean that you're really human. Humanity begins with dharma. This thing Indians should understand. They do understand, actually. To a better degree, at least, than anyone else in the world. That is a fact. But it's quickly being eroded because of a misdirected civilization. Well, our civilization is being misdirected. Even Indian civilization has been misdirected. Sangat sanjayate kama. Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita, your desires, what produces those desires? Why do you want the things that you want? Where does it come from? Krishna says sangat, from your association. If you associate with only material things, or only people who are only concerned with eating, sleeping, mating, defending, then that's where you're going to be as well. That's where that association will take you. And that's not necessarily human, unless it's performed at least with regard to shastric injunctions. How do we know this? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 16, the last several verses of that chapter, Yes shastra vidhim utsrijya vartate kama karataha nasa siddhim avapnoti na sukham na paramgatim. It means that if we just dismiss shastric injunctions, for example, it's a shastric injunction to rise before dawn, to take a bath, to worship God. These are shastric injunctions. If we just dismiss these things, then he says we don't get success, nasasiddhim avapnoti, and you don't even become happy actually, nasukham, and you certainly don't go back to Godhead, na paramgati. So therefore, tasmat chastram pramanam te karya vijanatah. That means you should understand, you should discriminate what shall I do next and what shall I not do on the basis of what the Shastra enjoins. This is how we become human beings, actually. So this is dharma. And on the basis of adhara, just like in India, we have adhara cards. So on the basis, adhara means basis, locus, maybe substrate, foundation, ityadi. So on the basis of this understanding or this status as a bona fide human being, then we can actually begin to cultivate spiritual life, and Rupa Goswami tells us that this is the first step. Now, having become human beings and having come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master, Srila Rupa Goswami continues and he tells us, what do you need next? He says, Atiyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha laulyam cha shadbhir bhaktir vinashyati. He warns us, 6 things you have to worry about. These are called your 6, sometimes we call them enemies, or at least there are 6 pitfalls. Number 1, well, he says, we're assuming now that we're already human beings and we're already interested in Krishna consciousness, otherwise he wouldn't be sitting here this morning in the nice weather, which is pretty rare up here, right here. I used to live in Seattle, I know. It's got to be worse than Seattle here because it's further north. Anyway, in Seattle they joke that there are 2 seasons. There's winter and the 4th of July. Or they say it's so cold that the lawyers have their hands in their own pockets. Take your pick. Anyway, what he's telling me, my host, is that it's bad weather here most of the time, so we appreciate that you're here today. You've utilized your God-given intelligence to make a proper decision, to make some advancement in spiritual life, because you have some inkling that there's more to life than just this daily grind, rat race. So, having made the determination to cultivate Krishna consciousness to any degree, Srila Rupa Goswami tells us, watch out. What is the first thing? One's devotional service is spoiled when it becomes too entangling in the following 6 activities. The first is eating more than necessary. You don't need to eat certain things. And even those things that are nice to eat, you don't have to eat too many of them, because eating is only meant to maintain the body. It's not just meant to gratify the tongue. This is a big challenge. I always poke fun at the Indians because I live there. I have some license to do that. If you're in South India, your big problem is gold. Any South Indians here, I apologize in advance. I'm never politically correct, but it's been my experience. Every 10 feet there's a billboard for what? Tanga Malegai Chennai Silksit. That means gold and, luxury. It's a fact. They seem to be very attached to these things. When you come to North India, what is it instead? The tongue. Anything you can, everything is about, even Prime Minister Narendra Modi, bless his heart. In the beginning of the lockdown, he said, just stay home and eat good food. So this is a problem. Assuming that we're civilized enough to be vegetarians to begin with, even then we have to watch out. Eating is only meant to maintain your health Actually, whatever I eat, it's according to the doctor's advice. Because if you're eating luxuriously too much, then it catches up with you by the time you're 50 or 60. You will experience it if you haven't already. So, just for health alone, this is good advice. But actually, for cultivating Krishna consciousness, we don't want to indulge in bodily demands unnecessarily, because it does nothing but cement our false ego into this mind-body complex and guarantee that we're going to make the wrong decisions thereby. So our whole point is to recognize, first of all, aham brahmasmi. I am spirit. I'm not this material body. That's the basis of spiritual knowledge. It's called atma-gyan, or atma-chakshu, to be able to see with the eyes of shastra chakshupi. That mentality is necessary, and we can't really cultivate that wisdom without controlling our senses. Because letting our senses run wild is to ignore the fact that we are not this body. As we said in the beginning, if you feel that you are not your body, or if you're told, or if you have learned that you have your spiritual identity, then why not act on that platform? If I'm not this body, why does the body push me around all day long? This is the first thing. So the tongue is a major thing. Sometimes it's said to be the worst thing. Maybe that's why it's listed here first. So, ahara. Ahara means what you bring into yourself. Now, ahara can therefore also mean to collect too many things. There are people in this world who believe that unless I get a new car every year, I'm not really fit as a human being. There are people who think like this. They have to have way too many things. Simplify your life. Live simply. Think highly. This is what Gandhi said. Srila Prabhupada was previously a Gandhian before he came to Krishna consciousness, you can say. And Gandhi's motto was simple living, high thinking. Of course, that was all completely overturned by his so-called students, Chamchis, who were actually just waiting to get in power and turn India into what it is today. But the fact of the matter is that even a politician like Gandhi said, we should live simply. So atiyahara is another thing. Two aspects. Either you're eating too much or you're collecting too much. In general, you have to be careful of that. Prayashascha. What does that mean? Prayash. Too much hard work. A 40-hour work week was the norm when I was growing up. How many people are working only 40 hours a week? You can raise your hand. A small number. See what has happened to us? Who's in charge of this? Who's doing this to us? You have to think about these things. Just like the Indians, back in 1947, they're said to have had independence. But India is so independent that you're only on shore if you're in another country. Hang on. So much for Indian independence. Our forefathers were collecting from the Indian Ocean Indian salt, and it was being processed in England by the British and imported, and therefore higher priced, and sold back to the very Indians who owned it. And in the same way, I see, in India, it's actually much easier to become Krishna conscious in the West nowadays than it is in India. Because they don't give you any freedom at all to do anything. And even if your boss gives you a little freedom for Krishna consciousness, your family definitely won't. So I've lost count of the number of NRIs who have told me that, we never would have become Krishna conscious if we stayed in India. It's a fact. So that's maybe part of this prayas. Too much over endeavor. And part of simplifying our life is to just do what's necessary to maintain body and soul together. Prajalpa. What is prajalpa? Prajalpa. Yeah, pra means like putting it out there, and jalpa means to talk or to prattle. This is another. This is maybe a bigger problem for the women than the men. Sorry. I said I'm never politically correct. But whenever two women come together, they have to be talking. Men, they can work silently. It's okay. Have you noticed this? Always. Or another aspect of this prajalpa, nagging. Constant nagging. All right. The men have their problems too. It's coming. We'll get to that in a minute. Just like false ego, isn't it? Big purushadhiman. This is the main problem of the men. Women can be humble and bow down and make garlands and do any menial service, no problem. But men, I don't know who I am. Big false ego. So everybody has their particular nartas, every community, every individual, every gender, every whatever. So, prajalpa, this is another problem. As soon as we come together, Prabhupada says we want to just talk about any nonsense. The men tend to talk about, big socio-economic schemes that, will guarantee the prosperity and welfare of humans, or political. This is another big thing. Politics. Especially nowadays, it seems like in North America, politics has become so prominent, almost like in India. So, this is all prajalpa. They're not really going to benefit us beyond this body. And we've already decided that we're not this body. At least the Shastra has already decided. Nirnitam. So, prajalpa, we should not waste time talking about useless, mundane things, here Prabhupada says. Not only do we not over-endeavor for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, but we don't want to talk unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. Just like in the rainy season in Vrindavan, the water is filling up everywhere, and what do we get? Little frogs. And they're making all kinds of noise all night long. And Prabhupada says, who comes in the rainy season other than the frogs? Snakes. And when they hear the frogs talking unnecessarily, that's their invitation. I'm over here. So Prabhupada says also that when we're wasting our time talking about mundane things, we're just inviting the snake of death. So use the tongue. Part of controlling the tongue is not just controlling what you eat, but controlling what you speak. So we use the tongue, instead of prajalpa, we use the tongue to speak about things that will actually elevate us. And it's not just speaking about things that will elevate us. The Shruti mantra tells us, Bhadram karane bhishrunayama deva dyadi. You have to think about, you see things that are auspicious, hear things only. Only hear things that are auspicious, only see things that are auspicious, only eat things that are auspicious, only do things that are auspicious, and only speak things that are auspicious. This is control of the tongue. The prajalpa is a recipe for disaster. So, the next one after prajalpa is niyama agraha or niyama agraha. Two more things within one. Too neglectful of the rules and regulations. We already mentioned in the beginning. Human life is defined by somebody who lives according to Shastra. You're eating, you're sleeping, you're mating and defending. It's all made, the choices are all made for you. About Hinduism, the scholars often say, Hinduism gives you infinite choices about what to believe. Infinite choice about what to believe. And no choices about what to do. So that is sense control. Yes, Shastra Vidam, we already mentioned. We have to decide what to do on the basis of Shastra conjunctions. But if someone is too attached to following every little persnickety rule, then that is also not good. Too much concerned, especially if, as is often the case, that fanaticism, fanatical attachment to following every persnickety little rule and regulation is done so in a way as to avoid surrender rather than to affect surrender. This is the real problem. The whole point is to develop bhakti, love of Godhead, and to surrender to the Lord. But if we're actually using every little rule and regulations to escape that responsibility instead, then that is not good. And it's called niyama agraha, to embrace these rules and regulations too much. But niyama agraha is more common, and that's usually what we struggle with. We're not inclined because we don't want to control our senses, because we haven't monitored our association carefully enough, and therefore we're absorbed in false ego. These things can only nourish the false ego. What do you expect? Therefore, what's the next thing he says? Niyamagraha. Janasanga. Janasangascha. We have to avoid the association of those who are just mundane. Those mundane means either they're non-devotees or they're too attached to sex life. Especially. Why? Because yanmai tunadi grihanedi sukham hitucham. Although it's not that significant. Sex life is not everything that it's cracked up to be, frankly. But this is considered to be the essence of material enjoyment in this world. Even Sigmund Freud believes that. What to speak of others. But the Shastra definitely teaches this. Everything revolves around this. Sex life especially, but any kind of material activity, any kind of mundane sense gratification, these are the things that absorb mundaners' mentalities. It's therefore called grihaneti, as opposed to being grihastha. Grihastha is somebody who maintains his household responsibly, but he also maintains the shastric injunctions responsibly. That's how he can do it, otherwise it's not possible. And he's cultivating spiritual life to elevate himself while he can. When I was in Seattle, they printed up these little mantra cards. They have Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is called the Maha Mantra we chant. And they distribute it in public when we go out for Harinam Sankirtan, as we're going to do tonight at 6 o'clock. In which park?
Peace Bridge.
Okay, whatever. So then, anywhere and everywhere. Lots of man. So, we distribute these cards. So on the bottom of the card there was a caption. You know what it said? The caption read, "Please chant these holy names while you can." That's supposed to spur the intelligence. Wait a minute, why do they say that? Because it's a fact. You may... one devotee I know in Los Angeles, she woke up in the morning and she was blind. She couldn't see anything. How it happened, I don't know. But, you know, it took some long time for her to get her eyesight back. And even still, she can hardly go out in the sun without these, you know, these big glasses that the senior citizens wear, meant to filter out the sunlight. Anyway, anything that she's lucky. She was alive even, but, you know, so, you know, that's another thing that happens. When you answer your door, like one gentleman in Dallas about 30 years ago, Gujarati man, happily watching television at 10 o'clock at night. I hope he was watching Ramanand Sagar's Mahabharata. So there was a knock at the door. And he didn't know that, you know, either you have a peephole on your door or you don't answer at 10 o'clock at night. Anyway, he opened the door and the last thing he saw was the flashing barrel of a gun. Put a goalie right through his face. Instantly he was out. And, you know, they only tied up his family members. At least they didn't rape them, or worse. And they took whatever they wanted and they go. That's the new style. Home invasions. Actually, California now, because California in the United States has legalized crime, virtually. Therefore, even in Fox Hills Mall, next to near the LA Temple, you know, there was a big gang of them just came, 12, 15 of them, just, you know, walked in. They coordinated it very carefully. They overwhelmed the security guards, and they just took all the fine jewelry that they wanted. Gold, diamonds, you name it. And the police can't do anything about it. Anyway, we don't want to divert too much. We're talking about association with mundane people. If you associate with mundane people, you will definitely become a mundane person. If that's what you want, then fine, but understand that you're going to have to pay for it. That's the play now, pay later plan. Because you'll take another birth. And what happens automatically whenever you take any birth in this world? What do you get? 4 things. Who knows what they are? Birth, death, old age, disease. Disease. Just like you have this pandemic is now winding down. But it caused so much disruption all over the world. You can blame it on the material nature, or you can blame it on the Chinese Communist Party, or whatever. But disease. You cannot live in this world without becoming sick sometimes very sick. Cancer. My father passed away from spinal cancer. That's not an easy one. So, anyway, birth, death is there at any minute. We don't know when, as we said already. So these things have to be avoided. If you associate with the mundane persons too much, means if you share your hearts with them, that's not good. If you, well, we'll get to this in a moment. I will explain this further later on. But to avoid mundane association is very helpful for spiritual life. And then finally he says, loliam cha, to be too greedy, very greedy. I hate to say this, but I have to say this. One Gaudiya Mat sannyasi, Narayan Maharaj, not many times I quote him, but one thing he said that was really good. What is it? He said, Indians are more attached to money than Westerners are to illicit sex. That's quotable, I think. More attached. This is lolium, greed. So this is the wrong reason to go to the temple. That's why every Diwali, who is it that we worship on Diwali? Lakshmi Ganapati. And why are we worshiping them? Well, we don't want to take any chances, right? So Shadbhir Bhakti Vinashyati. Our bhakti can be destroyed by these things. Goswami is warning us. Now, that's the negative side. Then he gives us positive side in text 3. Utsaham nishchayat dhairyat tat karma pravartanat sangatyagat sato vrittehe shadbhir bhakti prasiddhyati. That means there are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. If you're interested in pure devotional service, how does Rupa Goswami define pure devotion? Does anybody know? There's a verse that I'm thinking of. Maybe somebody knows it. Anyabhilashita? That means devotional service that is free from any desire for fruitive reward or any degree of speculative knowledge. These 2 things have to be avoided. And actually all non-devotional conceptions and activities can fit easily within these 2 categories. Everything Maya is going to manifest in either one of these 2 ways. It's going to be, subtle, or it's going to be gross. So, pure devotion. Pure devotion is ruined by the 6 things that we've just discussed, and it is perfected if we have 6 positive qualities. What's the first one? Be enthusiastic. Even if you're not enthusiastic, still, just like Srila Prabhupada said, dance in the kirtan. Even if you don't want to dance, do it anyways. Be enthusiastic. Krishna will notice that. And what happens when Krishna notices your enthusiasm? Actually, Radharani notices first, and she nudges Krishna. Here they're called Radha Madhava, right? Yeah, so she nudges Madhava and says, look at this one. Give him your mercy. See? So be enthusiastic, and Krishna will notice. And nishchaya, you have to be confident of what you're doing. Do you know why you're here? Why are you here? This question we have to ask ourselves every week. Why are you really, what do you really want? You're only going to get out of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada writes elsewhere in his preface, whatever you bring into it, whatever attitude you invest in this process, that's going to determine the result that you get from it. So know what you're doing. Be confident of what you're doing. That only comes by hearing these books and hearing these wonderful instructions like this one that we hear from Goswami. So, utsahan nishchayat, dhairyat, be forbearing. You have to be determined. And nothing comes without patience. Patience. When Prabhupada often gives the analogy that when a newlywed couple, anybody newlywed here, you don't have to raise your hand. You know who you are. You know, newlywed couple, the wife may be thinking, okay, well, the wedding is over now, where's the baby? It takes time. But it definitely, bache honge, zarur. In other words, nishchaya. So, dharya, but you have to be patient. It takes little time. Some best things, they take time. And tat karma pravartana. Tat karma pravartana. You have to do this and that, every little thing. Prabhupada said you have to follow all the spiritual master's instructions, even the little ones. Each and every one of them. That means tat karma pravartana. And you have to carry them out regularly, daily. Sangha tyagat. You have to give up the bad association. This is the second time we've heard it. How important is it that he repeats it twice? Usually that's considered to be a literary flaw if he repeats the same thing too many times. But the Prabhupada writes in his Bhagavad Gita as it is purport that repetition of a good thing is necessary so that you understand it actually. Not only that you understand it, but that you understand how important it is. We see in Srila Prabhupada's books many, many times the very basic ideas even of Krishna consciousness. They're there all the way from the beginning of the most introductory books in Krishna consciousness all the way until the end of the 10th canto. He keeps repeating the same verses, Dehinosmin yatha dehe komanam yovanam jarat yadi. But he does so in full also. Why does he do this? 3 reasons. 1, it's auspicious to hear and chant these things. Number 2, we have to understand what's important and what isn't important. And the only way that's effective is if the Acharya repeats them so many times. Then we know this is a major verse. And thirdly, we have to actually understand the teaching, what the verse actually says. We have to hear it. So, Sangha Tyaga, he's repeating it second time in only 3 verses. You have to give up association with the material energy. Now, Sangha, Samyak Gachati Iti Sangha. Sangha doesn't just mean who you hang out with, so to speak. Sangha means it all goes together. What's coming in your ears, what's coming into your eyes, what's going up your nose, down your throat, etc. What you're touching, what you're tasting, what you're hearing, adi adi. We've already discussed. Bhadram karne vishnuyam devatyadi. We have to make sure that these things are all auspicious. So Sangha, it's just not good enough actually to monitor the personal association, the people that you associate with. You also have to monitor the sounds that enter your ears. You have to monitor the things that go onto your tongue, the things that you touch, or the things that touch you, ityadi. Just like, I don't know about here, and maybe it's not so in Calgary, Canada, I just don't know, but if you live in a place like Los Angeles, then even in the middle of your sleep, because the ears are the most sensitive of all of our senses. The ears are actually the most important sense, really. People think, show me God, let me see God, but no. In Kali Yuga, you hear God, you don't see Him so much. And His form and everything is revealed through hearing. So hearing is very subtle. Even when we're asleep, we hear, and that's how we wake up. Nahito, your alarm clock would be worthless. Correct? Even if you're in a coma, doctors have told me, still you can hear. So hearing is so subtle. Now, when you're asleep in Los Angeles, especially if you're in South Central Los Angeles, what are you going to hear? It's not nothing. You're going to hear the Nishacharas. Who are the Nishacharas? They drive around in cars that have had the suspension lowered, and they have these mega bass speakers. I call them Nishacharas. Nishachara. Nishayam charati. Iti nishachara. So, this is the problem. Jana Sangha. It can be that subtle. So we have to be careful of these things. And Sangatyaga. This is Sangatyaga includes even these sounds that you may have to hear. Bhagavatam tells us, Pumsam kalikritan doshan dravya deshatma sambhavan sarvan harati chittastho bhagavan purushottamaha. If we are hearing about Krishna very sincerely, very seriously, every day, then Bhagavan Purushottama from within our hearts, he will purify us of the three kinds of flaws that characterize this Kali Yuga. What are those three flaws? Atma Sambhava Dosha, the stuff that we've brought with us, mental baggage from previous existence, samskaras, kusamskaras, bad samskaras. He will cleanse that. The anarthas, in other words, anartha-nivritti. And dravya sambhava doshas, the faulty assets, maybe we don't have sufficient things to work with, or we have contaminated things to work with, or desha sambhava dosha, the environment that you're in. All these things overwhelm us. These are three facets of Sangha that can overwhelm us. Bad environment, contaminated, things, or toxic people for that matter, and our own stuff that we're bringing with us psychologically. These are the three things that we have to purify. That's what it means, Sangatyagat. And satovrittehe. Here he translates satovritti as following in the footsteps of the acharyas, previous acharyas. Elsewhere I've seen Srila Prabhupada translate satovritti as leading a clean life. What does that mean? It means sattva shuddhi, to purify your existence. What kind of existence do you have to purify? Your spiritual identity is already pure. You don't have to purify. You cannot purify it. So what is he talking about when Krishna says that one of the first symptoms of knowledge is sattva samshuddhi in Bhagavad Gita? It means purifying your material existence, purifying your mind and body, purifying your household, purifying your environment, purifying your dravyas, and purifying your, therefore, psychology. All these things have to be done. So these 6 things, if you're very careful about not neglecting them, you will become a pure devotee. It's a promise. Have faith. You will become Krishna conscious. The process is perfect. If you're having any problem, even though you're trying to apply the process, it means you're doing something wrong. Just like if the theory is that you take 2 hydrogen particles and add 1 of oxygen, what are you going to get? Every time you will get water. No question about it. It's only a question, wait a minute, did I put 3 of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen? Any chemist here can tell us. What does that create? I don't know. But this is the point with Krishna consciousness. If you follow these 6 instructions, Rupa Goswami says, and of course the previous verses, up until this point you're responsible for those also. But if you do this, Zadur, you will become Krishna consciousness, he's telling us. There's no doubt about it. This should be very encouraging. All you have to do is work on these 4. Now, we were talking about Janasanga. If I avoid intimate dealings with other persons, mundane people, what does that mean actually? It means that you give gifts and you accept gifts from them. It means you eat what they have cooked, right? Or you give them something inferior to eat also. Or you reveal your mind to them. That's a big mistake. Or you inquire confidentially from them. That's another big mistake. Actually, these 2, I think, are probably the most prominent of all of them regarding Janasanga. So we cannot do these things. Just like there was a story Prabhupada told about this crocodile. No? Anybody know this? I forget it now. So, yeah, you cannot trust certain people. That's a fact. I mean, it's not maybe pleasing to mention, but the fact is that even among the devotees association, you have to discriminate also. That he gets into that later on in this very book and tells you How do you associate? Who do you associate with? You have to be discriminating about it. It's not that everybody in the temple is automatically a Paramahamsa, no. They're all different levels of advancement. So even in the lower stages, if you're not careful, that person can also rip you off. It's been experienced or it will be experienced. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of life. You can't expect a utopian existence just because you have an institution dedicated to spiritual elevation. So all these things are there. Now, what do we do if we're not supposed to engage in these 6 activities with the non-devotees? What are the 6 activities? To give and accept gifts, to reveal our minds or to inquire from them, or to eat or feed. What do we do instead? Dadati pratigrhnati guhyam akhyati pritchati bhunte bhojayate chaiva shadvidham priti lakshanam. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasada, and offering prasad are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. In other words, we do these things with devotees only. This is the point. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. All perfection comes when we associate with the sadhus. That's why it's said 3 times. Anyone who remembers school, if the teacher writes something on the board, it's probably going to be on the pariksha. And if the teacher writes it 3 times on the board, then it's on the antim pariksha. So, this is the idea. There's a lot of repetition here, but it's necessary for us to get it. Too often we don't get it, at least not very easily. It takes, as we said, takes time. That's why we have to be patient. So, this is text 4, that we have to exchange in these intimate ways with devotees only. That will elevate us. And even among devotees, we have to be a little bit discriminating. That comes to the next verse, which is text 5. What does he say? One should Diksha Krishneti Yasya Giritam Manasadriyet Dikshasi Chet Pranadebhishcha Bhajantanisham Shushrusaya Bhajana Vigyamananyamanya Nindadi Shunya Hrigamitsita Sangalabhya. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Krishna, Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation diksha and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So, what does this tell us? There are different classes of devotees. There are different strata, I mean to say, of devotees. Some of them are better and some of them are less for the purposes of intimate association. We respect everyone. Bhaktivedanta Thakur prays, Shokale Shamman Korite Shakti Dehonata Jatajata. I want to respect everyone, but Jatajata, as it's appropriate to their station and their status. So we have to do like this. Even amongst devotee association, we have to be very careful, because not everybody is equally advanced. Some are very, very neophyte, which means they have anarthas still. They've not finished the process of cleansing. But some of them are very pure. एक दोहा है ना, कि तुलसी इस संसार में सबसे मिलिया भाई, न जाने किस रूप में नारायण मिल जाए. What is the meaning here? It means you have to be very nice to all devotees. You have to show respect to everyone. You don't have to show equal respect to everyone, but you have to show decent respect to everyone, because you don't know who's advanced and who's not. In the beginning, we can't tell. Unless we have heard these things enough, we can't tell who's advanced and who isn't advanced. This is the thing. So somebody may be a Paramahamsa, and the nature of the Paramahamsa is that he thinks he's the most low. Sometimes it happens like this. The person who's, cleaning the toilets, but with a proper attitude is more advanced than the Pujari even. Life in this world is so that it sometimes happens like that. So we have to be very discriminating. Now, how are we going to use our vivek? Not our vivek. The vivek has to be given to us. Where is it going to come from? This is why Srila Prabhupada has written 60 volumes of literatures. It comes from Bhagavad Gita, it comes from Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhakti Samrita Sindhu, and also the Ishopanishad, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Upadeshamrita, Ityadi. In other words, it takes time to develop that discrimination. But to whatever extent we can, we have to use it. So, mentally respect anyone who chants. And Prabhupada gives the example of, anybody know the purport to this verse? George Harrison. George Harrison was a very famous English musician, Beatles, maybe you know. So, he was chanting Hare Krishna. He was a devotee, no doubt. But he was neophyte devotee. And certain things, he couldn't give up that. It's kind of like in Mumbai, so many great famous actors, and they're also our life members, but they can't give that thing up so easily. It's not so easy. So, we respect them in our minds at least. But if someone is actually initiated and worshipping the deity, and that means he's following all the other principles as well, regular principles, and he's trying to come to the Madhyama stage of advancement, then that person, we should actually bow down to that person and show more respect. And we can associate with them too, with the understanding that there's going to be some spectrum, a range of, adhikars within that category in general. But the person that is, Prabhupada explains mostly here, that pure devotee who's advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others, that person we should actually associate with and faithfully serve. In other words, that person is Paramahamsa. And usually it's understood that the spiritual master should be of that category. Now, Prabhupada has given us a very, very important purport, which we don't have time to discuss here. But I strongly recommend all of you read that purport very carefully, because there he mentions 3 categories of devotees. We're talking about the second category given in this verse, those who are initiated and worshiping the deity. 3 kinds: the Madhyama, the Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. So the Kanishta, obviously, as the name suggests, he's the youngest. Madhya, intermediate, Uttama, the best. They are defined, or they're categorized according to their own degree of faith. Faith. Shraddha mayo yam purusha, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. You are whatever your faith is, because you're going to do whatever you really believe in. That's why we mentioned confidence in the beginning, Nishchaya. And when you do, that's going to determine your future. So faith is everything, practically speaking. Just like George Bernard Shaw said, you are what you eat. So similarly, you are what you do. And you do what you believe. So faith is very, very important, and it's what categorizes us in one of these 3, either Kanishta, Madhyama, or Uttama Adhikar. Please do take the time to study those 3 as they're discussed in this verse, and when you do study this purport, you will see that these verses are quoted from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and you might want to even go there and see what it says about these categories there, because it's very, very, very important. Okay. Now, text 6. Drishtai svabhava janitair vapushascha doshair na prakrtatvam iha bhakta janasya pashyet gangam bhasam na khadu udbadathena pankair brahmatravatram abagachati niradharmaihi. That means, being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. We talked about that briefly already. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook A devotee is having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. So, Srila Prabhupada explains, pure devotee means he's practicing avyabhicharini bhakti. What does avyabhicharini bhakti mean? What does it mean to be something is abhi? Vyabhichari. Vyabhichari. What does it mean? It wanders around. That's why we have vyabhichari bhavas. You know, your transitory emotions. It's understood. They're flighty. So our bhakti should not be like that. It should be avyabhicharini bhakti. This is the point. And when our bhakti is like that, then it doesn't matter if we're low-born. It doesn't matter if you're poverty-stricken. It doesn't matter if you have a disease. It doesn't matter even if you're eccentric. Many great saintly persons are eccentric. We have to overlook these things in the body of the pure devotees. Now, pure devotees, this is another thing. Pure devotee is not necessarily an uttama adhikari. A pure devotee can also be a madhyama adhikari, even a kanishta adhikari. How is it so? Srila Prabhupada also defined a pure devotee as somebody who has no motive. He may not be mature, but he has no motive, no selfish motive. He's sincere. That is a pure devotee. And it's only a matter of time before that person matures. That's why we respect even the Kanishta Adhikari, even the devotee who's in whatever position. So similarly, Bhakti Raghav Swami. Anybody know Bhakti Raghav Swami? He's Canadian. He has no leg. So somebody might think, oh, you know, bad karma, right? No. This was Krishna's pastime. He offered his leg to Sri Srinath Radha Madhava in Mayapur by defending those deities from attack. In the late 1970s, some Mukundas were sent from across the border. Bangladesh, no doubt, you know, another religious community sent them. But they were attacking the temple. They were going to attack the deities, and he was the pujari there. He defended the deities, and the bomb blew off his leg. That is hardly a defect. Or a devotee may be born. We may look at him and think, oh, this guy is a New York Jew. It's not so. Or even Bhagavatam. Sorry, any Telugus here? Aajkal America mein Telugu ka akraman ho raha hai. Jahan tak ki there's a joke. Ki IT stands for International Telugus. But Bhagavatam says, Kirata hun andhra pulinda pulkasha, Pira shunpa yavana kasadayaha, Ye nye chapapa yadapa shraya. Says these are sinful communities. Even the Andhras, sorry. So we have to overlook these things are not important when it comes to spiritual life. When it comes to pure devotional service of the person is a pure devotee, koi badi baat nahi. So just see, appreciate what is happening in their heart. What was in his heart when he decided, I'm going to defend these deities in Mayapur even if these people kill me? That much we have to bow down to that, is it not? So that's the point in text number 5. But also a subtext here is that we have to recognize that there are different classes of devotees, it's stratified. I mean, I hate to say, some are higher and some are lower. And we have to use our discrimination when we choose whom we're going to associate with. So this is text 6, sorry. So these are the first 6 instructions of the Upadeshamrita. Then he starts graduating out of the realm of anarchana vritti, and he starts entering the realm of love of Godhead. There are 11 verses here, and we've already covered more than half. So that's, I think, all the time we have. I don't know what time it is here. Almost. Oh, it's 9:30. Sorry, I may have went over time a little bit. But we'll stop here. And if anybody has any questions or any comments about Rupa Goswami or his instructions.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for sharing your heartfelt realizations from the scriptures. So I have one question that I have often heard the most important qualification for going back home.
जोर से बोलिए, सीनियर सिटीजन हूँ. आपका शुभ नाम क्या है?
Adirupa.
Adirupa?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Prabhuji, like I have often heard that most important qualification for going back home is 16 rounds and 4 legged.
Yes.
And what's the foundation of chanting? I mean, like.
Yeah, I'll repeat your question, or you can say.
Yes. So I have often heard from the devotees that most important qualification for going back home is minimum 16 rounds, 4 regular principles. In order to chant 16 rounds, what is the most important
Okay.
foundation?
That is a big question. Everybody understood?
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, it's a fact Srila Prabhupada has said, if for the initiated devotees, his disciples, and of course that means his followers as well, if you just chant your 16 rounds as per your vow, and you follow the 4 regular principles as well, then you will go back to Godhead in one lifetime. But we've seen in ISKCON history, I have seen in the last half century of ISKCON history, that it's not so easy to do that. Many people fall away. I don't know the statistics, but I mean, I know that there were 5 people all initiated at the same time in my initiation ceremony, and there's only 1.5 left. The half is the one who went away and joined Gaudiya Math, but at least he's still doing something. The others, I think, destination unknown. So I think, Ekanna Nyaya has to be applied here. You can understand. So, yeah, it's not so easy. So then, what is the qualification for chanting the holy name, you're asking, and offenselessly? That is the qualification. You have to chant without offenses, and that's the topic of another lecture altogether, which we could give if you like, but this is the thing. It's not so easy to follow those 4 principles and to chant 16 rounds every day for every day of your life without fail, because things happen. I was living in a hospital, practically speaking, with taking care of my elderly mother when she had a heart attack. For days on end, it was, I was barely able to chant my japa. I did it, but, we have to be very, very, very determined. Really, in order to do these simple things, these 4 principles in 16 rounds, you have to be a pure devotee. And ultimately, that's the only thing that's going to guarantee that it happens. And that's why Prabhupada could make that claim. If you just follow these things strictly for the rest of your life, you will go back to Godhead, because it's understood. You will have undergone the process of an arjuna vritti. You will have developed the ability to chant without offense. You will have done all the things that Rupa Goswami mentions in his expansion of this book in the form of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Adau Shraddha tata sadhu sangha atha bhajana kriya anarjana vritti syat, and then nishtha, and then what comes ruchi, then asakti, and then bhava, and then prema. You have to go through all these 9 stages, practically speaking. So that's the simple answer to your question is the whole process of Krishna consciousness is meant to bring us to this stage of chanting properly. So, just keep at it. That's why these instructions are given in the 2nd and 3rd verse in particular. If you focus on those things in the beginning, assuming that we've conquered our senses, first of all, that's the 1st verse. If you just focus on the 2nd and 3rd verse, that's going to carry you through until you become Krishna conscious and can actually chant properly.
So, just like we're doing sadhu sangha right now, which is the 2nd stage, and then the 3rd stage is the bhajan kriya.
Yes, sorry, I missed that one.
So just a follow-up question: what's the important or most critical services in bhajan kriya?
Within Bhajana Kriya, we can say chanting the holy name because that is the Yuga Dharma. It's a fact. Etan nirvidyamananam ichitam akutobhayam yoginam nirvanirnitam harinam anukirtanam. This is confirmed in Bhagavatam and many other places. Chanting the holy name has been determined by the great acharyas and yogis as the topmost process. No matter if you want everything material, if you want nothing material, or if you're already liberated. Either way, this is what you have to do. Chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But, you know there had to be a but. It's assumed that, the hearing process is the substrate of that chanting. Somebody has to tell you to chant, you have to hear that, and then you have to decide to do it. So you cannot separate hearing from chanting. And it's just like, it's not like you put on your earplugs and then chant all your rounds. You have to hear them. So you can't really say, and therefore Bhagavatam does say that, what is that? Yeah, that's a good one. Wasn't what I was thinking of, but yeah, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, you have to hear every day. And sthane sthita shruti-gatam tanubang manohi. Just stay where you are, but hear faithfully. You may be busy grahastha, you may be on the lowest stage, entry-level Krishna consciousness, you may not be fully in control of it. Hear every day. Chant every day. And focus on the first 3 verses that we've read tonight, and then you will advance. It is guaranteed. That I've said many times in this lecture. Is that okay?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay.
So, Prabhuji, one more question. How should one display compassion to those devotees who say that Shravan Kirtan is secondary in Krishna consciousness?
Well, I've not heard any devotees say that, actually. Is this a new philosophy going around?
I don't hear it quite often, but sometimes it comes up that this is not the most important thing.
So what do they volunteer as the most important thing?
Maybe temple maintenance?
Okay, yeah, this if it's a philosophy, it normally comes from the managers. And it's understandable. If you've taken the zimmedari of maintaining a temple, yeah, of course, things need to be done. People need to step forward, and you'll be encouraged. So do it. Dono kijiye.
Thank you so much.
Do as much as you can. Do as much as you can. And we'd be surprised. As we focus on these initial instructions here in the Upadeshamrita, say the first 3 as I've mentioned, you will find that you actually have a greater capacity than you thought you had. And things become easier and easier and easier as the anarthas wear away. That's the nature of anartha nivritti. And the only real obstacles, bhakta, that we have are these anarthas. And bhakti affects the removal of those anarthas. Anybody know Ramapad Swami? Does he come here? Anyway, yeah. So he put it very nicely. He said, if your anarthas are being removed and you're attached to those anarthas, then you will be removed along with them. You don't want that to happen. Better you chant seriously and follow very strictly, and hote sab kuch theek ho jaye. So yeah, that's why he says, be patient, be determined, follow everything strictly, etc., etc. All right. Any other questions or any comments?
That was part of management. Management group. I am in one of them. But we have never said that Kirtanam Sarvanam is secondary. It's always the first. Yes. But then you also have time, that you said, to do some service to the ISKCON.
Yes. Practical service. One of my godbrothers, God bless him, Vishal Prabhu, he was a little bit famous among the godbrothers because he was always very stentorian, praising Srila Prabhupada in his presence. So one time Prabhupada was coming into the Vrindavan temple, and as usual, Vishal was there, and he was quoting Bhagavatam first canto. We think that we have met your goodness by providence, adi, adi, adi. Right? And Prabhupada just, every day he's doing this, praising, with some quote from Prabhupada's books. And finally, one day, Prabhupada came in, and Vishal was there again in the same voice, saying the same, high praises. And Prabhupada just stopped and looked at him and said, "Can you go do something practical?" So yes, I mean, if we're so much in love of Godhead, and if we're so deeply absorbed in hearing and chanting, the whole point is you've got to do something. Any Tamils here? Raise your hand if you're Tamil. No? One. Okay, so you must have heard the name Velukuri Krishnan, famous Kathakar. So he gave us the use of one of his ashrams in what is that place where Namarwar is? Alwar Tirunagari, Tamil Nadu. So we have some programs there, and I noticed on the signboard it was written, Kinchit Karam Trust. Anybody know Sanskrit? You know what Kinchit Karam means? Do something. Do something trust. So yes, we're not just idly, as we said in the beginning, this is not infotainment. We're actually meant to, do something to affect a change in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. And temples are very much a part of that, because people in general will come to a temple. If you say you're just having a satsanga program in someone's house, they will not necessarily come, but everybody will come for darshan. That is a fact. That is the great advantage of taking birth in India. At least they will do that. So, Prabhupada said the temple is actually meant to create a tranquil, spiritual atmosphere which will soothe the burning minds of the materialistic person when they come and see the beautiful forms of the deity and hear very nice kirtan and divine wisdom. So yes, to maintain the temple is a great responsibility, and I should add, it's a very difficult one. So please, do your part. Take it that this is your temple. Everybody can be involved. You can certainly donate. That I think you may be doing, although you can always give more, because as we said in the beginning, our needs and our wants are not necessarily the same thing. To live simply leaves more time for Krishna, more money for Krishna, more everything for Krishna, and put it here, because this temple is meant to awaken other people and help other people and guide other people. You should take part in this, definitely. Take it up. Okay. Anything else? Okay, so then we'll stop here. Thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.